John Paul, and welcome to another PSCM Omodo session. And I'm glad to say this week we have with us Dr. Vasco Stevenson. And this week he'll be looking at the Garifuna, a people based in the Caribbean region. He'll be giving us the full history of how they moved from St. Vincent onto the mainland of South America. But as usual, before we get into proceedings, we will go to Ndugu Imani, who will change the vibrations for us. So Ndugu Imani.
Asante sana Ndugu, and Hamjambo Jamal, which in Kiswahili means greetings family. So good to have you with us, and lovely that you've been able to log on and join with this reasoning today. My name is Ndugu Imani, as Ndugu Tahaka says. I'm a member of Pan-African Congress Movement and an African spiritual life coach. We use Kiswahili in the Pan-African Congress Movement because we follow what the Pan-African Congress said in the 6th Pan-African Congress, that if there was to be a unified Africa, that the language used for the lingua franca, the language that would for commerce, for education, should be Kiswahili, because so many millions of Africans already speak it, but still having respect and honor for all the other languages and dialects and cultures as well, but the one language that could unify us. So that's why we use Kiswahili. And Ndugu simply means brother. Okay, so we're going to perform the ritual or invocation of Mabadiliko ya Nishati. Kiswahili means changing the energy. So it's a form of libation where the libation can use water and alcohol, but this is using our energy as that gift or offering. And this is something that we have created so that we're in this virtual space that we can join with each other, even though we don't have the pleasure of being in each other's company as we would wish. But we now have this platform to speak to each other internationally and still have that fellowship and connection spiritually. So that's what it's about. So, Ndugu Tahaka, I'm going to share my screen.
Okay.
Asante. Okay, is that able? Everyone's able to see that?
Yes, I can see.
Okay, wonderful. So, Mabadiliko ya Nishati, as you can see in English, means change of energy. So, everything on the screen has a translation. We use Kiswahili terms, Kemetian terms, and some terms from Vodon. But there's a translation there, so you can follow along. I'd like everybody to participate if they wish, but our spirituality is not about coercion. So if you don't wish to, that's absolutely fine. But what we ask is that we have respect for our culture and respect for our way of life. So we ask that you listen patiently while we go through this, and it takes as long as it's going to take. But we do this in order to get ourselves into the right frame of mind and to help us to resurrect our culture and our way of life, and so that we're following our way of doing things. And this has gives still respect to all the other types of African spirituality, all the other traditions that exist. This is no better than anything else. It's just another one that we can use. Okay, so in order to get ourselves into the right frame, right place, we want to center ourselves so that we can connect with our higher self, and also that we can feel that we're using our full breath and feeling healthy and calm and centered, and moving away from where our enemies want us to be, which is to be emotional and animalistic and reactive, where we want to be in full possession of all our powers. So we're going to use our breath. So we're going to use some pot belly breathing, and I'll explain that. And we're going to do that for 5 times. 5 is the spiritual quantity for change, for activity, for versatility. So when we breathe out, we're going to pull our stomachs in, and that forces the air out of our mouth. And then when we breathe in, we relax our stomach and the air will wash in through our nose. And that's one cycle. And I'll count in Kiswahili so that we can keep time. Okay, so in order to do that, if you wish to take part, please sit straight in whichever chair that you're in. So your back, your spine is straight. So your 7 energy centers, the Hindu Kush called chakra, are in line. Your hands on your thighs, your feet flat on the floor. You can take off your shoes if you wish, if you're wearing them, or slippers if you're at home. Your feet are touching the floor. And we'll begin. So first of all, we close our eyes and we breathe out. So pulling your stomach in. And we hold it and we relax stomach and we breathe in. Moja. Breathe out. Hold it and relax stomach and breathe into the nose. Mbili. Breathe out. Hold it. Relax, breathe into the nose. Tatu. Using the full capacity of our lungs, breathe out. Pulling that stomach in into the lungs. Relax stomach, breathe in. In there. Once you start to feel calmer, and breathe out. And now relax and breathe in. Tana. Okay, so continuing with the ritual. To change the energy or vibration, we now thank the powers to ask that we have a closer connection with them and that they assist us in manifesting our objectives. So in order to help us stimulate that connection with the one vibration that is all things, including us, and we are expressions of that one vibration, we're going to ring the triangle chime, geometric shape of 3, very powerful, meaning about creation, life, optimism. And we're going to ring it again 5 times, Spirit tells me. And as we do, we go within ourselves, let the vibration go over us, around us, and through us. As we do, we give that our energy as an offering. And we let that energy, that vibration open up our third eye, our pituitary gland. And from that, we can connect with you as a conscious connection with universal consciousness, and thereby connect with each other wherever we may be in the world. So I'll ring 3 to 5 times, eyes closed, let the vibration resonate with you, and I'll count to keep time. Moja. Mbili. Tatu. Ine. Tano. Continuing. Now we come to the call and response part of the ritual. So as I say the first line, which is the translations are there on screen, then we say in unison together, we are one or we are the same thing. But in Kiswahili, we say sisi ni kitu kimoja. Sisi ni kitu kimoja, which means we are one or we are the same thing. A very powerful affirmation that we should always meditate upon, because we're saying that all these powers that we're calling upon, all emanating from the all, the creator, Muumba, are within us, are coming from within us, not outside of us. They are us. And so we're calling and coming into our true power. So I will begin. Ninaomba ya muumba awote. Sisini kitu
Sisimi
kimoja.
kitu kimoja.
Ninaomba ya nebecha. Sisini kitu
Sisimi
kimoja.
kitu kimoja.
Beautiful. Going on to one of the Lawa of the Vodun. Ninaomba kanuni na nguvu ya mamiwata. Sisini
kitu kimoja.
Now for the principles or aspects of the creator that underpin all existence, the powers. Ninaomba kanuni na nguvu ya shu.
Sisini kitu kimoja.
Ninaomba kanuni na nguvu ya tefnut.
Sisini kitu kimoja.
Ninaomba kanuni na nguvu ya nut.
Sisini kitu kimoja.
Now we go on to the Kemetic tree of life, which was the spiritual science to improve the human being, so that they could become one with their true power and bring all existence into balance. So these are powers that exist within us, underpin our existence, but also part of our psyche. Ninaomba kanuni na nguvu ya geb. Sisimi
kitu kimoja.
Ninaomba kanuni na nguvu ya auset. Sisini kitu
kimoja.
Ninaomba kanuni na nguvu ya sebek. Sisini
kitu kimoja.
Ninaomba kanuni na nguvu ya heteru.
Sisini kitu kimoja.
Ninaomba kanuni na nguvu ya haru.
Sisini kitu kimoja.
Ninaomba kanuni na nguvu ya herakuti. Sisini
kitu kimoja.
Ninaomba kanuni na nguvu ya maat.
Sisini kitu kimoja.
Ninaomba kanuni na nguvu ya sakar.
Sisini kitu kimoja.
Ninaomba kanuni na nguvu ya tahuti.
Sisini kitu kimoja.
Ninaomba kanuni na nguvu ya ausa. Sisini
kitu kimoja.
Ninaomba kanuni na nguvu ya amen.
Sisini kitu kimoja.
And now we can go on to calling upon our ancestors in our direct bloodline. We've called upon the first ancestor, the All, Muumba, the Creator. And now we can and should never forget those who are in our direct bloodline, first of all. So I'll begin. Ninaomba, Mami Yangu, my mother, Audrey May Kelly. Sisini
kitu kimoja. Ninaomba mababu ya Iselin Rattigan na Sylvester Rattigan na Louise Hines. Sisini kitu kimoja.
Ndugu Vasco, if you wish to.
Ninaomba mabatu Ethelbert and Vernon Stevenson.
Beautiful. Sisini kitu kimoja.
Sisini kitu kimoja.
Ninaomba bibi yangu, my grandmother, na babu yangu, my grandfather, Ketra Reed, na Edgerton Reed. Sisini kitu kimoja.
Sisini kitu kimoja.
Okay, anybody else wish to call upon their direct bloodline? No? Okay. And so now we can go on to call upon those ancestors who gave their lives, gave their energy, their time, their wisdom to move us towards our liberation and give us examples for us to emulate. So I'll begin. Ninaomba, Mzee, Omawali, El Haj Malik Shabazz, Malcolm X. Sisini Kitu Kimoja.
Sisini Kitu Kumoja. Ninaomba Honorable Marcus Garvey Senior and Marcus Garvey Jr.
Sisini Kitu Kimoja.
Kitu Kumoja.
Okay, my system has gone off again on the phone, but I will honor Harriet Tubman.
Sisini Kitu
Sisini
Kimoja.
Kitu Kumoja.
Ninaomba Wazee, Betty Shabazz, na Amy Jacques Garvey, na Amy Ashwood Garvey. Sisini Kitu Kimoja.
Sisini Kitu Kumoja. Ninaomba Brother Tagel, na Brother Doggy, na Sister Jan, na Brother Tenny, na Brother Berenge.
Sisini Kitu
Sisini
Kimoja.
Kitu Kumoja.
I will honor Frederick Douglass.
Sisini Kitu Kimoja.
Kitu Kumoja.
Ninaomba Wazee, Dr. Francis Cress Welsing, na Lela O Africa, na Dr. John Henry Clark, na Del Jones, na Sam Greenlee. Sisini Kitu Kimoja.
Sisini Kitu Kumoja. Ninaomba Baba Tony Martin, MZ Francis Cress Welsing, and NZ John Henry Clark.
Sisini Kitu Kimoja. Anyone else? Okay, and Ninaomba Wazee, Dr. Chancellor Williams, na Sheikh Anta Diop, na Sabonfo Some, na Max Bouvier, na Baba Vuzamazulu Credo Umtwa. Sisini Kitu Kimoja.
Sisini Kitu Kumoja.
And now we can go on to those ancestors who we don't always know their names, but they deserve our remembrance and honor and thanks for their contribution and their tremendous legacy they left us. First of all, those who fought and died in the Arabic slave trade, the Arabic enslavement, I should say, European enslavement, neocolonialism, and colonialism. Ninaomba Mababuya Mangamazi. Sisini Kitu Kimoja.
Sisini Kitu Kumoja.
Ninaomba Mababuya Asian Revolution. Sisini Kitu Kimoja.
Sisini Kitu Kumoja.
Ninaomba Mababuya Gula Vita, that's before the Gula Wars. Sisini Kitu Kimoja.
Sisini Kitu Kumoja.
Ninaomba Mababuya Taifula Mosai. Sisini Kitu Kimoja.
Sisini Kitu Kumoja.
The Mosai Nation. Ninaomba Mababu Watu Ya Kori, those are of our family in Australia, na West Papua, na Papua New Guinea, na Tasmania, na Dravidians. Sisini Kitu Kimoja.
Sisini Kitu Kumoja.
Ninaomba Mababu Ninaomba Mababu Wanachama Ya APLA, na SWAPO, na Freedom and Land Party, na Black Panthers. Sisini Kitu Kimoja.
Sisini
Kitu Kumoja.
Ninaomba mababu ya. Ninaomba mababu watu ya San na Twa na Hutu. Sisi ni kitu kimoja.
Kitu kimoja.
Ninawaomba wanaishi ambao watatetea sisi na wale ambao bado hawajazaliwa. Sisi ni kitu kimoja.
Sisi ni kitu kimoja.
And finally, we end on the words of power and affirmation. So we use the vibration of our voices and our intent. The only limitation is our own imagination and our own will. Whatever we dwell upon is what we create in our reality. So we say these words of power to bring into existence, and the powers that we called upon to assist us, to help us with these. So just follow after me. We say with power and intent. Nguvu zote.
Nguvu zote.
Nguvu zote.
Kwa watu wetu.
Kwa watu wetu.
Kwa watu wetu.
Mapenzi ya wote.
Mapenzi ya wote.
Mapenzi ya wote.
Ni mapenzi yetu.
Ni mapenzi yetu.
Ni mapenzi yetu.
Hakuna mwanzo.
Hakuna mwanzo.
Hakuna mwanzo.
Na hakuna mwisho.
Na hakuna
mwisho.
And then in Cometian, Anuk Amen.
Anuk Amen.
Anuk Amen.
All power to our people. The will of the all is our will. There is no beginning and there is no end. I am. Amen. You can see we have the vibration of the red, black, and green, and the translation in purple. Purple is the vibration for wisdom, seeking, and truth. Asante sana, Jamal. Thanks very much, family.
Thank you.
Asante sana, Undugrimani, for that. And now, okay, so now we're going to today's presentation, and that will be given by Vasco Stevenson. And Vasco is a renowned researcher. He's been a community activist for many years, and also he's a community teacher, you can say, with the many presentations he does. So what I'd like to do now is I pass you over to Vasco, who will be giving a bit of background on himself and what he does before he enters into his presentation.
Thank you, Brother Tahaka. I started my working life as a school teacher back in the Caribbean, and didn't get on with the headmaster due to the Victorian approach to discipline. And eventually I decided to come to England. That was 1964. And I worked on the underground for a short while. And then I moved into financial services, where I spent most of my working life. And two of my friends died of prostate cancer in 1982, and that triggered my interest in matters relating to the prostate. And since then, I have expanded that into all aspects of health. When I come across some Black history, I try to take it on board and make presentations about it, especially the hidden bits of Black history, like West Indians at the Panama Canal, and the Herero genocide in Namibia, King Leopold of the Belgian Congo, and the Garifuna is one such bit of Black history that I came across. I also present on metaphysics and what is going on in the world today behind the scenes, which is quite topical and intriguing. And of course, I've been on radio. I have my own radio program on Sunday mornings from 10 to 12. I have a website called blackhealth.co.uk. And yes, I've been all over the UK making presentations on all of these topics I just mentioned. And I hope you enjoyed today's presentation on the Garifuna, or Black Caribs. Okay, shall we go?
Yep. Okay,
Okay. I will
I'll
join
pull
you
up
at the end.
slide.
I'll listen intently and enjoy. I'm sure I'll enjoy and learn. Okay.
All right.
Well,
Okay.
we're all on a learning curve, yes? Because no one knows everything. All right, so let's look at the first slide, which is very interesting because you have a mother sitting down or a grandmother and a youngster. You can see from the lack of wrinkles in this hand, that's a young person who's actually plaiting the hair. Okay? And this reminds me of some history I came across of Colombia. And it was a place called San Basilico de Palenque, a village in Colombia, which was almost untouched. The same way the people were dragged from Africa into Colombia in South America, they were living their lives in this village. And the hair here reminds me of a story I came across which said that when men were in prison, the African men, the ladies would ask to go and see them, but they would plait their hair in a particular way. And when they saw the men would be able to recognize that they had plaited their hair in the form of a map, so that if they escaped from the prison, they could follow a particular route that was plaited into the hair, and then they would not be caught. And I found that quite intriguing. So if you do come across anything about San Basilico de Palenque in Colombia, it's worth looking at. Okay? So the Garifuna. This is a promotional postcard from Honduras, and you can see it's all been photoshopped and really not a true image of the Garifuna. It's only a representation of one aspect of who the Garifuna happen to be. And I'm going to show you now an official video, play for you. This
The
one.
handmade percussion, the hip swaying dances, the emotional lyrics. It's a cultural immersion like no other.
Hold on a bit, Brother Vasco. It's actually stuck on the introduction.
Really?
Yeah. So we are not seeing the other video.
Okay. I've come out of that. Should I need to stop sharing for a minute and go back, yes?
Okay, okay.
I don't know why that should happen. It worked first time. Share screen, share audio, application window. You can see it again, yes?
Yeah, it's back up.
Right. Let me try to change the screen and see if you can see what has come up. Did the screen change?
Yeah, yep.
And again?
Yeah, it's changed.
Good shit. Okay.
Yeah, that's fine now. It's coming through.
Handmade percussion, the hip swaying dances, the emotional lyrics. It's a cultural immersion like no other from the Garifuna of the North Coast. The Garifuna are descendants of African slaves who were shipwrecked in the 1600s and then intermarried with the Carib Indians. Today, there are several Garifuna communities along Honduras' north coast and on the Bay Islands, with many in the Tela Bay area. Each dance style tells a different story about work, family, ancestry, even death. The punta is the most popular, originally a fertility dance of West African origin. Day, the punta is often performed during holidays and at parties. Garifuna music and dance has been proclaimed a masterpiece of humanity by UNESCO. Don't miss your chance to witness that masterpiece. Only in Honduras, the Central America you know, the country you'll love.
Okay, let me just correct one error in his presentation. He said the Garifuna are the descendants of slaves. In actual fact, the Garifuna were never enslaved. And as I go through the presentation, I'll make that a little bit clearer to you. So here's the history of the Garifuna. About 1,000 years ago, 1000 AD, a tribe called the Locono or Arawak from Venezuela came along the Orinoco River, which is the biggest river in Venezuela in South America, and migrated to the islands in the Caribbean. And after that, the Carib people migrated also from the mainland about 1,200 years, 1,200. And this is as a result of artifacts that were found. And they then went into the same islands, and the Arawak or Teno became assimilated. So they almost became one, okay? Living in the islands in the Caribbean. The first Africans arrived in 1635, following the wreck of 2 slave ships, not one. And these ships had sailed from the Bight of Biafra, which is part of Nigeria, modern Nigeria. And the survivors were rescued by the Carib Indians off the island of Bequia, which is a smaller island besides St. Vincent. And then they were taken to the mainland St. Vincent. So the point I was making earlier with the previous slide where you saw the people dancing is that they were taken from Africa. The 2 ships got wrecked off St. Vincent. So although they were captured Africans, they were never actually enslaved. Okay? That's a very valid point. But life on the island is a small island, and after a while, the Africans and the Caribs started having altercations. And the Africans, who were physically stronger and bigger, had different customs, okay? So the Caribs decided that they would actually kill off the Africans. And all of this took place after there had been quite a lot of intermarriage between the 2 groups. But some of the descendants were of a lighter complexion and some were darker from the marriage of these different groups. And we can see that today even in modern society. All right? Now, quite often this word comes up, Cimarron. And it depends on who you are as to the interpretation of this word. To the captor, Cimarron means wild. So whoever is doing the capturing would describe these people as wild. To the to the captured person, Cimarron simply meant free. Freedom. Okay? So it's a question of interpretation. All right. This is a map, a relief map of St. Vincent. And most of the captured Africans left the rest of the island and settled in the northeast corner of the island. And St. Vincent is a very, very hilly, mountainous place. And right at the top of here is Mount Soufriere, which incidentally, in the last couple of months, started to become active again, spewing out quite a lot of smoke, and some lava was coming out, but at the top. So it really hasn't blown up. It's just rumbling and throwing out smoke at the moment, and it's being monitored. So you can see all of this represent hills, all of this gray matter. Around the coastline, of course, are the fertile bits and parts of the mountains as well. This side would be the Caribbean, and this side, the Atlantic. And here is a photograph of what most of St. Vincent looks like. And up here at the top is where Soufriere, the volcano, is. So you can see anyone trying to capture the island or get onto the island has a very serious task ahead, especially if you had well-trained people defending the island. And that's what the Africans were able to do successfully against the French, who at that time owned the island. So the new liberated territory, that is the northeast corner of St. Vincent, attracted many other runaway African slaves. The word Garifuna, by which these Cimarrons soon came to be known, is a derivative of the word Carib or Galibi. But I'm questioning this because I think it has more to do with cassava, Gari from West Africa. Okay, so let's move on. This is an artist's impression of what a black Carib woman would look like, wearing the Carib dress, and of course she's got her little undressed baby beside her. So this is an artist's impression, okay? At the beginning of the 18th century, there were now two different types of Caribs. You had those who had a lighter complexion and the darker ones. The red Caribs, convinced now that their relative weakness, requested French support to deal with the Africans. But a French naval force sent from Martinique, which is not that far away, to evict the Garifuna from the mountains, had to withdraw in the face of their astute ambushes and intrepid attacks. What happened here is that the Garifuna, especially the black ones, saw the French ships in the distance, realized they were coming under attack, excuse me, and dressed up as women, put their daggers in their clothes and went down on the beaches near the sea and started dancing. Obviously, the French sailors who were at sea now for quite some time, because you had sailing ships in those days, and they rubbed their hands with glee to see all these women on the beach dancing. Of course, they had their intentions, as to what to do. But when they got onto the beach, it was a completely different story. Okay, they found out that there weren't women at all, but there were men with daggers, and they paid a very heavy price. In 1743, the 1763 peace treaty between England and France annexed St. Vincent to the British Empire. And the British immediately tried to forcibly evict the Garifuna from their extensive, fertile highland territories. But by then, the Garifuna numbers had gone up considerably, and they were able to fend off the British. And the British came back in greater numbers. And on March the 14th, a battalion of British soldiers marched to Dorsetshire Hill, and that is when the Chief Chatelier, the leader of the Garifuna, was killed by Major Alexander Leith. And that, of course, deflated the Garifuna, and they were then beaten by a much larger British force. So the British made a decision, and this decision was based on their experience with slavery in other parts of the Caribbean. Obviously, a lot of this is written from a white perspective. Okay, so the British separated the African-looking Garifuna from the more Amerindian-looking ones, and decided that the darker ones had to be exiled and the lighter-skinned ones could stay on St. Vincent. So 5,000 Garifuna were exiled, but because of the journey to the place where they were being sent, only 2,500 survived. These are red Caribs called Gariganu, and they live in a place called Uramain in St. Vincent. And you can see they're of a slightly lighter complexion than Africans. After a decade-long standoff, the Garifuna made peace in 1773, but it was a fragile peace, okay? And they were deported to the island of Roatan off the coast of Honduras. Don't confuse this with British Honduras, which is now called Belize. And the British had a dual objective in ridding themselves of the black Garifuna. Firstly, Central America, where they went to or were sent to, was occupied by the Spanish. And the British thought, well, if these people are so rebellious, let the Spanish deal with them. Okay? Turned out not to be the case. They were not rebellious at all. They were just protecting what they thought was rightfully theirs. Another 300 were shipped to Trujillo, and because these islands were small, obviously they could not support the Garifuna population. And they asked the Spanish if they could come onto the mainland, and the Spanish readily agreed, okay, and found that the Garifuna were not rebellious, but in actual fact were very industrious. So this map gives you a timeline. 1492, we remember Columbus, yes, coming into the Caribbean around that time. Here we see the journey of the Arawak and the Caribs from Venezuela. This is Venezuela here, and that's Colombia over here, okay? So along the Orinoco River and up to the islands of the Caribbean. This little one here, out there by itself, is my homeland of Barbados, okay? Along here, this one is St. Vincent. Now, 1797, and they're being shipped across the Caribbean. This distance, believe it or not, is 1,500 miles. During the daytime, it is hot, but at night, because it's sea, the temperature drops. So you can very well understand why 2,500 of them died. And now they're in this part of Central America: Honduras, Belize, Guatemala, and some in Nicaragua. All right, the Bay Islands. And here it is again. Here's the representation. Here's the red showing you where the Garifuna are mainly situated. And over here, you can see where they came from. Here is St. Vincent, this little dot here. So about 1,500 miles across the Atlantic. And this is the Garifuna flag. They consider themselves a nation, separate nation, separate from everyone else, with their own culture and customs, okay? The Spanish soon discovered that the Garifuna were peaceful and hardworking, and allowed them to set up communities the length of Honduras' mainland coastline. Their new territory was centered in the city of Trujillo and extended down to a place called Stand Creek in what is today Belize, formerly British Honduras. They came as farmers, fisher folk, and had extensive experience in dealing with Europeans, indigenous, and French or English speaking blacks. But despite the 100 years that had passed since their arrival in the Caribbean, and despite these multiple contacts and interracial mixtures, they came with their own language and traditions intact. They did not give up their African culture. That is fascinating. So the Garifuna are now found mainly in Guatemala, Belize, Honduras, and Nicaragua, and one or two in Panama. The population estimates vary between 200,000 and 500,000. The language is the Garifuna, also called Garinagu, and the religion is a combination of Roman Catholicism and traditional religion, which they brought from Africa. But of course, like most people who have been taken from Africa to the West, their culture has come under severe tests. And when they speak their native language, which the men would speak, which would be Arawak, a mixture of Arawak and African language, the women would speak a mixture of Carib, okay, and the African language. But to get work now, they have to speak Spanish. This is what I term poverty in an idyllic setting. From a distance, it looks very idyllic. Trees, a few huts there for shelter. But look at this with a sense of reality. What we are seeing here is just a crowded sandbank. And this is one of the places that the British dumped them on when they exiled them from St. Vincent. Now, people are living here cheek by jowl with each other. The sea is the only thing that gives them food. And of course, there are other aspects of life that we could ponder on if we wanted to do so. All right? Let's have a look at Garifuna culture. Culture is very important. The Garifuna culture is heavily influenced by African traditions, often demonstrated through their drum-based music, an African dance style called the punta. And I'm going to show you some people dancing the punta. You would have seen it in the promotional slide from Honduras earlier on. The religious practices balance involvement with the living through dance and song, and the dead through feast and spiritual contact. And one thing the Garifuna pay a lot of attention to is the relationship with the ancestors. Almost everything they do is connected to the ancestors. And incidentally, I see a lot of, should I say, white European writers these days using the word ancestors quite liberally, whereas a few short years ago, when we used it, it was classified as mumbo jumbo. But now almost every one of them write and talk about the ancestors. Here's some youth drumming. Drumming is an integral part of African culture, as we know. We do it here quite a lot in the UK. And drums are not only there for beating a rhythm, but when you wanted to communicate, villages distances apart would communicate by way of drums. And that's why the Europeans couldn't take the drumming, because they knew that the Africans were communicating with each other and they couldn't understand what was being said. Garifuna people live in a matrilocal society. That is that the women are in charge, okay? But because they have to rely on the men for an income, the women's role is somewhat subdued, except in the house where the women rule, okay? Here's a very practical sister with her tied towel to take the weight of whatever she's carrying off her head. As a youngster growing up, I used to see this quite a lot. And she's got her washing in her basin. This one is a yearly enactment of the settlement day when they came from St. Vincent to the central Spanish mainland. I'm not going to play the full thing because there are many such slides to have a look at. So every year they meet at the seaside and reenact what they call Settlement Day. Okay, let's move on. We've got a lot to cover, okay? Although men can be away at work for large periods of time, they still believe that there's a strong connection between men and their newborn sons. And the men believe that a baby boy and his father have a special bond. And until that age, that boy reaches the age of 7, he used to be under the control of his father. So his father would shape his character until he reached the age of 7, and then the mother would get more seriously involved. Okay, I'll skip this one and move on to the religion. I have to bring this down a little bit smaller because I can't see the whole of it, yeah? Okay. The Garifuna worked through a shaman, okay? And he is known as a Buri. So the shaman is actually very much like a pastor or a priest. So he would be the intermediary between the ordinary folk and their god, or their Bungiyu, as they would interpret it. Wonderful. Okay. Moving on. Mystical practices and participation, such as the Dugu and the Chugu, are also widespread among Garifuna. And at times, traditional religions, especially Roman Catholicism, have prohibited members of their congregation from practicing their traditional African rituals. We are all familiar with that, yes? How Christianity and other religions have impinged on our own African religions. And at this point, I think I would recommend an excellent book for you. It's written by a Nigerian gentleman called Harry Ajina. And it tells the story of how religion is destroying Nigeria's culture. And it's called The Return of the Funky Pastor. the invasion of the funky pastors. And that's Pastors, not Bastors, okay? Ters. From the very beginning, religion was an energy that fed Garifuna resistance. And the centerpiece of their religious beliefs and rebellion was the religion of the ancestors. In turn, one of the chief expressions of that religion, celebrated as early as times of the Cimarron communities, is what Garifuna of Nicaragua called the Walagalo, or the dance of the roosters, as it's called in Spanish. Galos in Spanish means a rooster. Okay? But in Honduras, it was called the Dugu, but it was the same type of dance. I'm going to show you a video of that. But let's have a little look at the Walagalo. It's a celebration of all Garifuna as a family. They are all family, no matter where in the world you are, no matter who you are. Once you're a Garifuna, you're part of the family. The whole race meets with the Gubida spirits, okay, from time to time. And they say, there we feel among brothers. If you're fighting with a brother or a relative and aren't speaking to each other, the friendship returns there. So when you get to this meeting, this family gathering, all your animosity and everything must be set aside. There must be no hate, no fighting when they meet as a collective. I think that's wonderful. And this particular dance mainly seeks to establish a longer life on earth for the participants. And this can either be achieved, either because a sick person is cured by appeasing to the ancestors and changing his or her wayward behavior, or in the case of sickness, a message is sent directly by God. Okay? Because these intermediaries, these Gubidas, have obtained God's permission to prolong the person's lifespan. So the intermediary, if the person survives, means that God has given him the authority to expand that person's life. I will skip some of these. I will only read what is in red, okay? The ancestors become the last recourse in the struggle to relieve the person and neutralize the illness. So they go through all the different channels first, and then if nothing appears to be working, they then call on the ancestors, okay? And in some cases, although the ancestors do not directly participate in provoking the illness, they intercede with God to cure their relative or whoever the person is. Okay, I'm going to skip right through because I'm looking at the time, and I want to show you the dance of the Walagalo. This is a representation of a death ceremony. When a person dies, all of this is brought out, and certain rituals are performed. Okay? This is also a burial ritual as well. But what has happened is that Roman Catholicism has gone into their lives and influenced their lives considerably. So let's look at a short video about that. Okay, we're going to move on. And the one word there, of course, that I recognized was hallelujah. Okay, everything else was sung in Garifuna language. The dances, and all of this is about culture. What makes up culture? Religion, music, cuisine, yes, habits and customs, they all make up culture. So we're looking here at aspects of Garifuna culture. And there's a dance, there are many different types of dances. Some I will just mention by name as I go along, but I will show you videos of some of them. The Wanaragua literally means the mask dance, and it is sometimes called the Jan Canoe. And if you're familiar with West Indian carnivals in the Bahamas, the annual carnival is called Jan Canoe. And in New Orleans, that word comes up as well. Okay? And it's a mass Christmas procession that is commonly performed during the Christmas season. What is intriguing about this is that this date here, January the 6th, okay? This dance goes on, this ritual goes on from December the 25th to January the 6th. And perhaps at the end of this presentation, if you remind me about that, I will explain that to you because it has a lot of significance, not only for the Garifuna, but for people who are involved in esoterics and the development of the pineal gland and other aspects like that. Here's this dance. Let's have a look at this particular dance. What is interesting about this particular dance is that it's the drummer who is taking the time from the dancer. Okay? The dancer is controlling the drums. So when he moves his feet very quickly and shuffles them around, the drummer then has to speed up to match what he is doing. Okay, let's move on. There's another dance called the Sambai, and this has taken on modern expressions, if I may use that word. In performances of Sambai, the dancer salutes the drum and jumps into the center of a ring of dancers. And each dancer displays his own fancy footwork and individual stylized movements. Okay? So let's see if we can get some Sambai up here. And this is pretty modern Garifuna music because, of course, over a period of time, their music and cultures have been influenced by what they hear on radio, on television, and what they see going on around them, like every other group of people. So let's have a look at this. This is Brother, he calls himself Brother David Obi, and he is playing some Sambai music. Okay, we are moving on. So that's the soundbite. Now this, believe it or not, there are many, many Garifuna living in New York and San Francisco. And in New York, they have set up the Garifuna Ballet, named after their uh, leader who was killed on St. Vincent, Joseph Chatelier. And the first video is very intriguing. Okay, we're going to move on from here. And that is the Chumba. Okay, I'm going to show you another, the same group, and now they're performing rather than traveling. The first one was traveling on the train to the destination, and now they're at the destination and they're going to perform. Okay, and there are lots of other dances, the Sharikarari, others. I wouldn't mention all of these because of time constraints. Okay, the paranda is an interesting one because if you go to Trinidad and Grenada and parts of Venezuela around Christmas time, there's a type of music called parang, which is only played around Christmas, and this is where um, parang comes from. Okay, paranda, and each different dance or style of music, of course, over here we would know about rock and roll and jazz and rhythm and blues and lovers rock and reggae, calypso. So it's the same principle here. Okay, right. What I really want to show you is this one to show you how modern times have crept in and are actually influencing a change. Because the guitar is not a natural part of Garifuna instrumentation. So to see the guitar appear now means that the society is changing. Okay, we're moving on. The punta is the most popular dance of all, and you would have seen in the openings, one of the opening slides, the Honduran um, touristic presentation on the punta, but that's commercial, okay? And this is actually a mating dance. As you can see, there's a lot of sexual connotations in these movements. All African dances have that rhythm, that uh, expression. Let's put it that way. So let's look at the punta, and you'll see how it's danced regularly in festivals without
I want to thank all of the warriors who went out yesterday to protect our women and children on the London Black Lives Matter protest against the racist idiot thugs. You guys did an amazing job, and I am so proud of you. So thank you.
queridas, beautiful women. My name is Betsy Perez, and I am the creator of Papaya Intimate Wellness. And what is Papaya Intimate Wellness, and why did I decide to create this business, this practice?
I was in conversation with one of my homeboys last night, and I was telling him, sometimes when you're healing, you are the trigger man.
In ways that are manifesting in my adulthood, or whatever adulthood is.
Being launched, and what can we expect, do you think?
My expectations aren't very high, but the fact that there's an inquiry about the police actually doing an investigation into themselves is bizarre in the first point. And secondly, with regards to what was said with regards to stop and search, etc., one thing that we have to also look at and take into account is that we have this matrix that the police actually have as well, the gangs matrix, and even those that are victims of crime are actually put on there.
Yo, what have you done this week? And if I don't do it, he'll be like, yo, why have you done it? You better do it. And I'll be like the same to him. So get a person that's got your back, that will push you no matter what. You know what I mean? And that goes for anybody. You need like a circle around you of people, of doers. So you say, I'm going to say something and then you say it, okay? Okay. I am beautiful. I am beautiful. I am great. But it's not about that. Like, everybody's on their own journey. And what's for you will never pass you by. What's for you will never pass you by. It's coming. You can only enter the space when you're vibrating at the same level as it. If you're not on the level of it, it's not coming out, I'm telling you. So just finished my first session of 2020, an amazing session, some amazing year 8 girls, different personalities, you've got the loud and bubbly ones, you've got the shy and quiet ones, but I'm just happy to be on a journey with these young girls. It's my first day back at work. I haven't been in this building for 3 months. I mean, I love my garden, but I love it here more. We've got so many amazing events that are coming. Let me tell you, bigger, better, amazing. Come and support. We're all about excellence, and we're bringing it. We are going to be bringing it. So watch this space.
You know, I think people need to hold accountable to what's happening, but whether that's actually going to happen or not is another situation together.
Do you think it was intentional?
Yes. 100%. It's part of the gentrification situation that's happening. It's like, yeah. And even when you look at certain places, like you have places like Tottenham in North London, Hackney in East London, all of these places that were predominantly African people, you know, all of these people are now being moved out working class. To young black people, you need to be aware of what's going on and to know the paths to kind of take in order to create change.